They mend the eave outside my office, accidentally trap a starling. She shudders behind sheetrock, muffled wings in the wall, frenzied fit, then still for slow hours until the next burst of beating quickens the dark emptiness. And I'm relieved no witness, no young, not hers, not mine, is with me to hear drawn out death and fear, or the whisper of prayers said only to speed the clock. I'm Celisa Steele, and I'm grateful for this chance to share some poems with you. That first poem that I opened with follows a form that I invented, and because it's the only poem so far that uses that form, I call it the Starling. And it consists of 2 6-line stanzas. There's a rhyme scheme and there's a syllable count. The lines have differing syllables in them. And I share that by way of conveying the fact that I'm a bit of a form geek. I really like forms, whether inherited or invented. And you've probably all heard, Robert Frost talking about free verse like playing tennis with the net down, and that gets interpreted as, free verse is too easy. There's no challenge in it. But I'll say that personally, I tend to find that the limitations and constraints of form actually help me by kind of limiting the endless possibilities of the blank page, which makes it a little bit less intimidating for me, a little less overwhelming. And the next poem I'll share follows a form created by poet Dorianne Locks. She has a poem called Death of the Mother that borrows the end rhymes from John Donne's Holy Sonnet 7. And the poem that I'll share now takes the end rhymes from John Donne's Holy Sonnet 8. And I use as an epigraph the first 2 lines of John Donne's Holy Sonnet 8. If faithful souls be alike glorified as angels, then my Father's soul doth see. Keeping time with the dead. They come on a night so hot not even the glorified dead can sleep. They sit on your bed, seeing what you see. The dusty dark, the spent sheet, a fan spinning its small felicity. You finally ask what eternity's like. They smile and stride straight outside, stop near the oak where all day a hawk cried, and wait for you to follow, patient as only the dead can be, as you navigate the necessary doors. Goosebumps immediately cover your arms as the oldest, whose face you've tried, but failed to place in the panoply of all you mourn, pulls an open-faced Elgin from his shirt pocket, waves to call you closer, winds the stem and holds it, beating and pharisaical, to your ear, then launches it high with a quick half-turn. It lands with a flashy clatter on the brick walk. You like best how he cradles its ticking before tucking it in his breast. So I'll stick with death and with form for this next poem, and actually even with Donne, though a different Donne. My next poem is written after Stephen Donne's poem Tenderness, and in fact, my poem uses the first line of Donne's poem as its own. Luck, aka Death of the Mother. Back then when so much was clear and everything I knew, perfect and shiny as a box toy, was learned from my mother. I was 7, she 37, with a husband, my sister, and me, 11 years from the need for a diagnosis, 21 left to live. Walking the sidewalk outside my father's office on a Saturday, while he fetched a stack of forgotten papers, she taught me what there is to know of luck. Plucking a 4-leafer from a tangle of gangly clover, then another, and soon a third. She found 33 that morning, hands behind her back, ruffling the green with the toe of her sandal. And I found none. She said having's not important, and we pressed a specimen in each geochem final my father graded. Who knew if she believed in their luck, if she made it a game to pass time, or if she knew all rarity is a kind of miracle, small things growing in overlooked places if you know how to look without looking, naked need blinding as bright light, or the loyal illusion of permanence, that dark magic we practiced in the days just before we went from 4 to only 3, and what it meant to live, amended in that moment, muted. So that last poem was written about my mother's death, and I've written many poems about that over the years, though at this point it happened long ago. But more recently, I've been dealing with my father's health issues. My father's dementia is diagnosed. In 4th grade, I bought my first pantyhose, and my father brought hydrochloric acid home from his lab at the university. I dropped the hose in a big glass jar, added diluted acid, recorded elapsed time as the tiny holes in the nylon mesh expanded, blossoming into a single nothingness. Now I know it wasn't a science experiment about acid rain, but a lesson in how the most flawless things, the pristine shimmer of new pantyhose, dissolve, and all I can do is document the disappearance. Hole in the center. I'm in the kitchen washing breakfast dishes before the house cleaners come. 1,000 miles away, the dopamine in my father's brain is drying up. A month ago, we loitered on the beach, dusk, my kids playing in the sand, sharing the red plastic shovel they'd found half buried. A gray Wrangler drives near the surf, stops 20 yards away. A man's arm frisbees square slices of white bread out the window. The Jeep gone, Dad waves his arms, scatters the shrieking gulls, gathers the bread, explains, "You aren't supposed to feed them." The kids keep digging, the hole getting deeper. Then he looks down, discovers the squashed bread in his hands, says, "Come on, let's go feed the birds." The tide is running out, the beach wide and empty. I dry the last mug and place it in the cupboard. Once the house cleaners emptied the dishwasher. I spent half an hour tracking down the kids' favorite cups, the pasta spoon, putting things back how they're supposed to be. Last day of the year pre-dawn blues. Or call it lamentation for that which I did not accomplish this year, miles unrun, kindnesses that remained pure conjecture, the Italian book on its shelf, spine perfect. The kids dream in their beds, clutching one scruffy stuffed animal apiece. The lovely ignorance of youth. I'll turn something ending with a 0 this year that starts tomorrow, as will my father, who shuffles more than steps now. Let's call it dread of the inexorable advancement of the future, or what we all know of the ills of time, or 40 is not the new 30. Today and tomorrow are holidays, then back to work, a story known as the meaninglessness of modern labor. The work we do at desks and on phones, so far removed from finding food, shelter, clothes, and so overwhelming, we could call this the lie of progress. Soon others will wake, and every action will carry the mock weight of being the last of the year, last shower, last flossing, last kiss, though it's just legerdemain of the calendar. We can count a year from any moment. Soon the song of the interior day will take shape, scrape of dishes, heavy feet on bare floors, and blend with dogs barking at their backyards and the grumble of cars carrying those who must to work today, until we might call this orchestra of loss and all its many blessings. I'm very interested in dreams and the subconscious, the unconscious mind, the possibility of what exists beyond our knowing mind. And Adrienne Rich wrote, "Poems are like dreams. In them you put what you don't know you know." And I do think that it's very interesting, this idea of tapping into things that both, I think, dreams and poetry opens up to us. And in fact, the seed for this next poem started as a dream. One morning I woke up just thinking how wonderfully funny the word tub is, T-U-B. And then my waking mind wound up tying that word to Azrael, the angel of death. What made Azrael laugh? Before time, before anything had fallen, before he'd thought to think what he might become, that he could become, he heard the innate hilarity of tub. The word so bright, so clean, he laughed to shout it as he thwacked his stick against the trimmed shrubs that marked the end of heaven's watered lawn. Tub, he'd whisper in God's ear, or yell from the trees he'd climb. He grew fluent in the nuance of that single word, learned speech as untethered sound. Practice, in the end, for what was to come, the angel of death reading from the script his inalterable lines, slower sometimes, an extra breath, or a rush to the end, but never a joke, never a smile or laugh, always the same truth he hates to tell but tells. Death, the invisible hub of all living things, death scrubbed raw until it only means its sound and nothing more. So I have just one last poem to share with you. Thank you for listening. The Minister of Loneliness has no children of her own to entrust to an aproned au pair, no quick kisses as she leaves each morning for work. And she has no spouse who might grow melancholy like temperamental orchids in the vaulted halls of the silent house, who might open cupboards, search neat rows of goods for a jar, just one, graced with his wife's precise fingerprints. And she has no friends waiting for her call, no waggling dog waiting to be fed. No, she was appointed to this post because she could give everything to this ministry, prepared by the paper she wrote in college, eons ago, on the geology of loneliness, that proves it doesn't crumble like sandstone, isn't fissile as shale. No, it's smooth, she showed, and cold as polished marble, the kind that won't be carved into the face of someone beloved, the kind that remains blank and empty and clean as counters in a kitchen where no one ever cooks.